I'm Mike Goodman, the Pinal County Supervisor for District 2. Would like to express my gratitude to those of you that are in attendance. Hopefully you'll find that the discussion tonight will be very informative and very helpful. So I can kick things off, I would express my gratitude to, first of all, Sheriff Lamb. He's doing a great job here in our county, and particularly in the Sand Valley area with the limited resources that he has. And I'll let him speak a little bit about what his office is doing and how they're going about in their processes. And we just saw a report earlier that was kicked off, and he might want to speak to a little bit about that report. But just so that people know that we've been working pretty hard to increase the presence of officers here in our community in the Sand Valley area. We've also received, or the schools have received, some funding for additional resources for officers in the schools. And so they're going to be working with Sheriff Lamb's office and reaching out and trying to fill some of those positions for officers within the schools, resource officers. In addition to that, we have Rural Metro on the call here, or on the virtual meeting, and they'll be talking about their services. Many of you know that our particular area is a subscription services for fire department, and I want to express our gratitude to them for their efforts and what they've been doing over the several years that they've been here, and look forward to continued services and things from them. Then also from our emergency preparedness area that the county has, we have Mr. Chuck Kmet, that's part of this conference call. And so if it's okay with everybody, what I'd like to do is probably turn it over to Sheriff Lamb. He's probably got a lot of things going on, and then let him speak a little bit. I know he's got his pilot with him. Just so everybody understands, he's not driving, his wife is. And so he's being responsible in that capacity. And so, Sheriff, I could kick it over to you a little bit. Maybe you can share some of the things that's going on, and we can open up for some questions if we need to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Goodman. And you're right. Just so everybody knows, I'm not driving. I had my wife come with me because I knew I wasn't going to make it back in time. So it's a pleasure to be on here. I want to thank Supervisor Goodman for the introduction and for the kind words. And of course, all the other partners we have, Chuck Kmet, Shawn over at Rural Metro, just working together. Honestly, a lot of what we've been able to accomplish this year has been large in part to the fact that we've had such great partnerships here at the county. I want to give credit to the Board of Supervisors because we did the staffing study. That was one of the things that we committed to do when we took office 4 years ago. We did the staffing study, and I would have to give credit to the board. They committed to do whatever the staffing study says, and over the last 4 years, without putting an undue burden on the budget, we've been able to do that. We've been able to fill the positions that it required. It's also given us a good look at where those calls for service are typically happening. Now, as a county, and this is in part due to the county attorney's office as well, we've actually seen about a 17% reduction in the gross crime index here in Pinal County. When you look at our crime statistics, especially as it relates to violent crimes, property crimes, we are significantly lower per 100,000 people than the other counties in this state. So it is something that we're, not only does it show what kind of sheriff's office and deputies we have and detention officers, but it's a credit to you, the people of Pinal County, for being such great citizens. So we also, we're a little tight on staffing in the Santan Valley area and throughout the county. We'd love to get more bodies. And the Board of Supervisors has been willing to do that. I apologize for the light coming in and out. The Board of Supervisors has been willing to do that. However, we are still trying to fill the vacancies that we currently have. As you can imagine, with some of the national narrative and the media, we have it has made hiring a little bit more difficult. Plus, they changed our retirement program, which has kind of turned this more into a job than a career. And we're working on hopefully changing that back to where it used to be. But we're moving forward. We feel like this year our goal is to get those positions hired and hopefully come to the board and to the people of Pinal County for more positions so that we can beef up our staffing in Santan Valley, which I think we all can agree that the population has increased substantially in Santan Valley, and in particular in Supervisor Goodman's district. We are consistently staying in communication with the board. We've been fortunate. We've been under budget the last 2 years, and we hope to be under budget this year. It's going to be a little bit more difficult with some of the issues we've had to deal with COVID, overtime, those types of things. But we are documenting those things to know how much of that overtime was attributed to COVID and other situations. I want to thank the public health as well, because there's a lot of places across this country where public health has completely disregarded the effects that COVID is also having on public safety, and by locking, having people stay at home, a lot of different things. We've seen an increase in suicides, domestic violence. I'm trying to hold this as steady as I can, promise. We've seen an increase in all these crimes across the board, child crimes. We don't want to see the kids cooped up at home. So we're trying to balance that as a county between public health, and thank goodness they recognize the impact it has on public safety. So we've been trying to balance that as well. I don't want to take up a ton of time, but I think as a whole of the sheriff's office is doing very well. I'm grateful for the men and women who put on that badge every day and go out and do this work. They truly are the ones that deserve the credit. They're the ones out there doing the work. And I'm grateful to partners like you see here tonight on this call, and especially Supervisor Goodman for the work that he's done in helping us achieve our goals as a sheriff's office. So thank you so much, Supervisor Goodman, for having us on. And I don't know if somebody's gonna have questions. I can't touch on everything. Hopefully I give you a little bit of insight as to what we're dealing with. And some of our goals this year are to reduce our response times. We want to continue to reduce the gross crime index. We are constantly looking for programs that will help address the mental health and drug addiction issues that we're seeing, not just here in our county, but across the country. And of course, fighting against illegal human trafficking and drug trafficking coming into our communities as well. So thank you for the time. I appreciate everybody who came on tonight, for the support you guys have given us. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, if I could ask a real quick question of you. You've had the sheriff's posse and then the citizens on patrol. Could you speak to a little bit about that? We might have some individuals out there that might have some interest in either one of those two volunteer organizations that you've got.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. You're right. We've had our patrol posse for a long time, and thank goodness we have, because they typically do about 1,800 hours a month. Obviously, COVID affected that because some health concerns, we weren't able to get a lot of those guys out that normally come out. But typically we get about 1,800 hours a month from them. These are all volunteer hours. We also have the citizens on patrol, block watch, plus they help out with some traffic control, events, those types of things. We're extremely grateful for the time they put in. We also kicked off our citizens posse this year, which is more of a citizens academy where we educate people, constitutional law, what we do here at the sheriff's office, what your rights are for protecting yourself, your home, what you can do in case of emergencies. And that gives me peace of mind to know that as a sheriff, should we have a flood or a fire, Chuck can speak to some of those things. We are always at risk at any time for those things and emergency management. And it's nice to know that we have citizens that are willing to step up and help out their communities if need be. The citizens posse is not an active posse. It is more for educational purposes. And in case the sky falls on us, we have some folks that we can fall back on to help us out. So we have tons of opportunities for volunteering. And if you're looking to volunteer, you can check that out at the sheriff's office website and click on volunteer, and it'll give you all those options.
Okay. Thank you. That And then the other items that you've done here within our schools and between you and the county attorney's office, you've had some great successes. At least a year ago, COVID's kind of dampened that to some degree this year. But what do you look at the horizon for some of your community events that we've done in the past?
Yeah, we'd love to get back to the core events. Obviously, we're still trying to get through the COVID issues right now. We'd love to get back to the core events. So those are the community events we were putting on in the different neighborhoods. We had great feedback on those, tremendous success from those. We want to get back to those. We are also helping Florence School District. They received a lot of funding for school resource officers, and we're doing the best we can to accommodate those. Thank you to the board for approving those positions. So we're assisting in that area as well. I know they got a few more that we're going to work with them on trying to fill. I just think it's good for our students to have that safety net there, and having positive interactions with law enforcement on a daily basis, I think is good for our community, good for our children. So we're grateful to be able to help in that. I don't have enough staffing to fill all the positions right away, but we are working on trying to get those filled. And that's the Florence School District, not Combs School District, just the Florence.
Okay.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, it looked like we had some questions.
Yeah, we had just one question for you, Mark. Someone asked about, how you mentioned the crime rate being down and lower. They asked about breaking that out by type, if there's any information on that they could find. They mentioned vandalism they feel has been up, particularly in Johnson Ranch. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, we are seeing a little bit of vandalism, and I bet you and I can pull those numbers. I don't have those offhand, and I should. But I can get that together, and then what I'll try to do is put that out onto Facebook within the next week or so, get you some statistics for the last year. Yeah, I mean, anytime you have kids home and kind of, getting a little bored not being at school, although we've been back to school, we are seeing an increase in vandalism. We're still considerably lower, not that it makes it any better than other places. And we're working hard on trying to stop that as well. But yeah, I mean, that's some of the byproduct and some of the side effects of dealing with the pandemic this year. We have seen an increase in some of those crimes across the board. And on the crime index is broken out through a lot of different things. It has to do with recidivism rates. It has to do with people being charged, convicted, crimes occurring, all of those things. So, but anytime you can reduce your crime index by that much is a good thing.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark.
Is there any in the queue there for him? Oh, Jeannie Stockton has her hand up.
I just wanted to ask the sheriff if there's been an increase in illegal immigration. I know this is the perfect time for that to happen, but have you witnessed any of that so far?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. And look, this isn't I don't want this answer to seem political in any way, because I don't want it to be. It has been off the charts bad. Since the last month, we have seen a tremendous increase in the amount of people coming in. And the other day, we caught 35 people down on the end of the county. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. And we called Border Patrol, and Border Patrol didn't have any place to put them, and all their guys are deployed down on the border. And ICE didn't have any space in their facilities because of new policies implemented by the new administration. So we had no other choice but to release those people just to walk into our communities. Over the last 60 days, we have had over 45 pursuits that ended in bailouts, which means that we chase them and then they bail out of the vehicle. One of the times they left a 12-year-old girl in the car, 16-year-old Guatemalan girl. These are 7 people shooting out 12 people. It is almost daily and sometimes twice a day that we're dealing with this type of issue. So we have seen a ridiculous increase in this, and it is alarming to us. The good news, I guess, is that a lot of it doesn't stay here in this county. It spreads throughout the country. But that's still not good. I mean, that means it's ending up in somebody's community. And that's not to impugn any of these people saying they're bad people, but what goes hand in hand with that is human trafficking and drug trafficking. We just caught 21 kilos of heroin and 5,000 fentanyl pills last night. In 2018, we had 0 fentanyl pill seizures. In 2019, we had 677 M30 fentanyl pills. In 2020, by October, we had over 300,000 M30 fentanyl pills seized. If you don't have to be a mathematician to know that that's a major problem, and we expect that to only increase even more now with these laxed, with the policies and the orders they're putting out to just open the border. It's going to be a real problem.
Thank you, Mark. I think that was it for questions there.
Okay. Mark, we appreciate you and all the service that you're doing. I can only imagine what it's like with the added load on you and on your staff. And so again, I'll reiterate it publicly that whatever you need to help in your responsibility and your job, just let us know. Okay. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I appreciate that.
Okay. If there's no other questions for our sheriff, then thank you, Sheriff. Enjoy the evening with your wife as she chauffeurs you around. Put it on her. Janelle, thank you. Take care of him. All right. With that, let's go over to our emergency preparedness individual, Chuck Kmet. And maybe he can kick off and then lead into some discussions with our rural metro.
Thank you, Supervisor Goodman. I appreciate it. Like the Supervisor said, my name is Chuck Kmet. I'm the emergency manager for Pinal County. For many of you that may not know what emergency management is, to say that it's along the lines of FEMA is only in the acronym of FEMA, and that we at the county level try to do things better and more proactive for the people in the county, because realistically what we always talk about in disasters and bigger emergencies is that all disasters start and end locally. With that, one of the things that we really do is we are not first responders in emergency management. I've got a team of 4 planners, as well as a person that works on all of our accounting and grants. The emergency management program, the Office of Emergency Management, is underneath the Public Works Department for the county. And our planners and myself, we work to really try to support public safety agencies within the county. That's probably our first and foremost thing that we do. You know, if you guys have seen, or probably many of you have, the personalized license plate, the black one with the blue and red line that says supporting public safety, my license plate would say literally on it, because that's literally what we do is support public safety agencies whenever they need extra resources during an event, or if they need things like this past year with the COVID stuff, we were supplying the PPE to all of the fire departments, the sheriff's office, the police departments in the county, as well as to county government. So that way we continue and have that continuity for government, so we can continue services for all of you and the rest of the county. Besides supporting public safety, what we do during a larger event, we'll say like a wildfire or you know, big flooding or monsoon storms or something to that effect, is what we do see a lot of in the county. Is we will help with coordination and communications with the public safety agencies, but then also with the public, and to provide you with as much information and warning as possible. And then we also make sure that our elected leaders and the department heads within the county have as much accurate information as possible, so that way they can provide guidance to their staff. And then as far as the elected officials go and the board goes, so that way they can provide good guidance to the public safety agencies as to what objectives they want us to try to handle and take care of during that particular event. One of the easy things to talk about with regards to public warning, as an example, is we have a mass notification system that goes throughout the county. It's called the PEN system, the Pinal Emergency Notification System. You can sign up with your cell phone and use your address, and then we send information when it comes up. But even if you don't sign up, if you've got a home phone, or sometimes even if you have a cell phone and your address is listed within the county, we can capture that information through CenturyLink, and we're able to send out messages to provide warning to you for things. Now, we wouldn't do that for like Gansel Road being blocked up or something like that. We're going to work with Public Works on that, and the Public Information Office to help provide any information that we may be able to have that they don't already have. But this would be for larger events, maybe something that has hazardous materials spill or something like that that occurs within the Santan Valley area, or something that may affect you beyond. We used it often this past summer during the Bighorn fire down in the southern part of the border. And then when we had some of the fires up in the Superstitions, when there were concerns in the Apache Junction, Gold Canyon area, we were ready to provide that information to the public at a moment's notice. And then we do a lot of that coordination with the Sheriff's Office and with our fire department partners in order to affect the evacuations if need be. And then from there, if we had to set up shelters, then we do coordination with the Red Cross, other government agencies, and other non-governmental agencies or nonprofit or organizations like the Salvation Army would be a good example. As far as services that we provide directly to you, besides trying to help the capabilities and increase the capabilities of all the public safety agencies in the county, one of the things that we try to do, and obviously you haven't seen much of us, just like many others this past year, is do community outreach and education programs. So that way individuals and your individuals and your family, that you are more prepared for yourselves, because the better that you are prepared is going to take a little bit less of a burden off of the public safety folks for what they need to do in helping people in these larger events. So we try to do public education and outreach on emergency preparedness and personal preparedness, your family preparedness, preparedness for your pets, preparedness for your older parents, for your kids, and really try to create this community of people being better prepared for things. Yes, a personal responsibility piece, but also just helping people have the tools of what it is that they need to do in order to be better prepared. Some of the things you may or may not think of. One perfect thing that I'll give you a quick little tidbit of that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to things like your household items, when you have homeowners insurance, you've got a perfect thing in your hand, most likely in your cell phone, and that's a great way to document things in your house. So when you're done with this thing tonight, what I would love to see each and every one of y'all do is go through and take pictures of the important things that are in your home. If you have serial numbers with it, do that, because if you were to have a house fire, or if you were to have an emergency where you would have to leave and your house was destroyed and you have to make a claim to your insurance, you've got that information right there in your phone, because good chance you're probably going to be leaving out your house with your phone. You may not take everything else, but you're probably taking your phone this day and age. One thing that's a little bit different from the county in regards to emergency management that maybe you would see in, say, a city like Phoenix or even Queen Creek right next door, is that they're going to have emergency managers, emergency management programs, but they may not be as robust. They may be underneath the fire department or the police department, but they're going to provide a lot of the same things, in that they're going to support their agencies, they're going to support their government, And they're going to try to provide that same information to the public when possible, and the community outreach. By state statute, every county has to have an emergency management program, but not every city has to have a program. And then by default, if you will, we as the county emergency management program take care of all of unincorporated Pinal County as best that we can. One of the things that we do that with is a little plug for one of our programs. It's called CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team. We've actually had some conversations with the Sheriff's Office about incorporating the CERT program into some of the stuff that they're doing with the Citizens Posse and maybe even Citizens on Patrol. So a little more to come with that, because we just started that conversation at the beginning of the year with them. But that's where we are teaching everyday citizens some of those basic preparedness and basic first aid and basic principles of helping yourself and helping your neighbor in a major disaster that may occur. The last thing that I really want to hit on, and this is kind of the segue into talking or turning it over to Rural Metro, is one of the things that we really focus on in assessments with emergency management is the increasing the capabilities and the capacity for public safety services within our jurisdiction. So for us within the county. One of the things that I saw when I first came here 6.5 years ago, but even prior to that, when I first moved to Arizona from Georgia, was how surprised I was on the things like fire service coverage and where that was compared to what I was used to back east. One of the things that I saw that I didn't realize until doing some more research was what the powers of the board are and what the powers of the board aren't with regards to state statute. And with that, some of the other laws that other states may deal with. And if you're someone that's retired and come in from a different part of the country, you probably understand that there's some things like duty to act or duty to respond because it's in, it's in state law. And that is not something that the state has with regards to fire service or with regards to emergency medical services. Law enforcement, yes, but not for those other two public safety partners. So there is not that duty to act and duty to respond. So one of the things that I see as an initiative that I really would love to see us do more focus on for the county, in whatever fashion it may come to be, is increasing things like our fire department services and our emergency medical services in step with what the sheriff is trying to do with increasing the law enforcement services that we have as we continue to grow and grow and grow. I don't know the percentages that we've grown from this past year. I'll be really excited to see what the 2020 census looks like because I know that we had some good growth, and as our neighbors to the north and neighbors to the south continue to grow, and as people realize the value that everything that we have in Pinal County, that we're just going to continue to grow. We just need to make sure that as the Board of Supervisors and as public safety officials, that we are ensuring that our capabilities grow with that, because that is definitely not one of those infrastructure capacities that we want to be behind the 8 ball on. So I hope that with that, I helped provide a little bit of information about what emergency management does for the county. And how we coordinate with our partners in public safety, how we're trying to provide that information to you. But then, like I said, at the very end, one of my big focuses is as we look to the future and as we see growth in the county, how we can try to accomplish exactly what the sheriff is trying to accomplish with increasing his capabilities and increasing his capacity. So I'm going to be quiet now because I also told you that I would keep this to less than 15 minutes, and I actually promised your staff that I would be well under that. Thank you, Supervisor.
Hey, thank you, Chuck. But real quick, when I first came into office, one thing that was really impressive to me was I immediately was pulled into some of your emergency exercises that the county put together. And it was a coordination effort with all of the emergency entities, all our in the county, all of our sheriff department, The schools were involved. Then there was the rural metro, all the fire departments of any municipality was present in those exercises. I mean, we did exercise tabletop all the way to a shooter scenario at the county courthouse, which was extremely impressive. And that's one thing that I've really grown to appreciate what you've done, and then all the other coordinating agencies and how you pulled things together. And especially over the last year when COVID first hit, we were kept informed daily by you and by our health department what was going on and what was transpiring with the COVID, and then what the scenarios are. And you guys were really good about keeping us informed. And even on the shortages of the hazmat suits or whatever for protection for our police departments and for our sheriff and for our fire department, I just cannot tip my hat off to you enough in appreciation for everything that you've done, Chuck. Those are behind the scenes that people don't know about. And I have praised you a lot. I know I chewed you out one time before in regards to some stuff, but I've long since eaten my words, because you've just shown the capacity and your abilities beyond measure, and I've been extremely impressed. And all the other fire departments and everybody, the sheriffs and the other entities that were involved in those exercises, you cannot practice enough for any of these type of emergencies. And that's the part that has been increasingly helpful for me, knowing behind the scenes that if another emergency comes in, you're there prepared, ready to happen. When I first came into office, there was issues regarding one of our utilities here with the high nitrates. Is that something that if you were more involved, were you part of any kind of putting that message out to our citizens? Was the emergency management team, were you involved in that?
We were on one of those instances. In particular, I want to say about 4 years ago, we received a call literally at 4:59 on Friday from ADEQ that the levels were high, and they wanted to make sure the message got out there before over the weekend that people should be making other arrangements for that water. And that was something that we sent out through Everbridge in coordination with public information office and others, and able to provide as much widespread information for that as possible.
Okay. Well, and hopefully with the new utility that's there and present, we're not going to see any of those kind of issues come up in the future. So, but thank you, Chuck, and all your efforts and service that you've given. Appreciate
Thanks, sir.
it.
I appreciate that
All
as
right.
well. I think my boss might have been on, so thank you so much for the accolades, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, brother. All right. Rural Metro. There has been a lot of issues that have been surrounding some of the things, people not really comprehending or fully understanding what the services and how the subscription part of it. Most of the people that have moved here from outlying areas moved from other municipalities, and they don't fully comprehend or understand, or it's not, at least the education part is not there and hasn't been successful of helping people understand the type of medical and emergency services, particularly fire protection, and how it functions here, with it being a subscription service. So if I'll let you guys go on to that, that's something that's been new to me over the years, and trying to find a way that we could actually increase your foothold here, because we do have a big gap. And I want you guys to talk a little bit, and I'm talking about a gap in subscription, not a gap in service, but a gap in subscription. I want to be very clear about that. Okay, Brian? So that people understand that rural Metro has really done a pretty good job for what the foothold and everything else that they have here. So with that, I'll turn that over to you, Brian Davis or Gilbert or Shawn, whoever wants to take the lead.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Goodman. And thank you, everybody, for your time this evening. We know everybody's time is valuable. So my name is Shawn Gilleland. I'm the Public Information Officer with Rural Metro Fire. You'll see also we have Chief Brian Davis and Chief Brian Gilbert on here with us as well. So they'll be available after this to answer any questions or address anything that may come up. But really what I want to do is, and as Mr. Supervisor Goodman was saying, is kind of give a quick overview of why our services are like they are in your particular area. And I hope it's not remedial for you folks who have been in the area for a while, but I also don't want to leave out those folks who are new. As Supervisor Goodman said, the people who have moved here from other places who aren't familiar with why their service comes like it does in a subscription model. So jumping into that, the reason that Rural Metro runs or operates on a source of funding from subscriptions is because obviously, as we've heard in a few other statements, the area that you live in is unincorporated Pinal County. In the unincorporated portion, there is no property tax assessed to your homes or your properties there in Pinal County that goes to support fire department services. By law, they have to tax and then provide the law enforcement, which they do, as we saw with Sheriff Lamb and the Pinal County Sheriffs. But there is no funding that goes towards fire department services. So in lieu of that, Rural Metro offers those services. And to fund our services, or to fund the engines and the staffing and all the stuff that we do down there, it comes out of membership subscriptions. So without that tax, every property has a basic annual subscription amount that's standardized on their square footage. So, depending on how big your home is, there's a annual fee. We do offer that you can break that fee down monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual, however you like to pay your bills. But all that revenue that's generated from the subscriptions goes into the services that you see existing in Santan today. So there is really, there's no real difference, if you will, in these services that you're receiving that you would receive in a city or anywhere else. It's really the only difference boils down to that funding mechanism or how it is that your services are paid for. If you look throughout the Santan Valley area down there, on average, our services are roughly $500 a year. And again, it depends on how large your home is or whether your home is smaller or larger. But around on the average, it's roughly $500. And if you look at the math on that, it really boils down, or it equates out very similar to what you would find in other cities and what they tax on their assessed value, and what the mathematically boils down to how many dollars per $100 of assessed value. It comes out roughly the same in many instances. So it's worth mentioning that because even though it is funded like in the source of a membership subscriptions, that's only by default because there is no other way to fund those, and it's not something that we here at Rural Metro, it's not something that we think, well, that's the only way to do it, and we don't want to do it any other way. We agree with what I hear from a lot of folks is that we would just rather have it in a property tax. Unfortunately, without a government entity such as a city or an incorporated area, that property tax can't be put into place and then generate the revenue therefore needed to support the services down in that area. So we agree with the folks where it would be so much easier to have it in a property tax. And really the only way to accomplish that is through either an incorporation effort or a city entity being developed, or a fire district in which then voters could approve a taxing mechanism. Or we can actually boil that down a little bit further into doing individual master agreements with either HOAs or areas within Santan Valley. So there are options. However, in the absence of those other ones, we have to default to a subscription service. And then when we talk about the subscription service, as Supervisor Goodman was saying, where the gap he was mentioning is that typically, on average, there's roughly about 40% participation throughout the Santan Valley area. So 1 in 4 people in your neighborhood are subscribing to the service, and they're the ones who are actually funding everything that you see going on with the fire department in there. Every time that 911 is called and we respond, that's funded by that 1 in 4 members. So it's worth mentioning also that there are parts of Pinal County that don't have fire service, that because there's no support in those areas, because there's no funding coming out of that areas, for instance, Cactus Forest, there is no fire service. There's nobody to provide them fire service necessarily when a 911 call is made, and that has to default back to whatever the next closest city might be, and whether that city will opt to take that call or respond to that call, because it's not within their area from which they are funded either. So it is, again, there's lots of different places where, even though they're in the county, they might not be receiving that, but there's also no way to fund that out there. So I have some statistics, just a little bit of data from what's going on actually in your community. In 2020, our stations, we have 3 stations down there. And out of those 3 stations, we run 4 engine companies. So there's 1 station that's housing 2 engine companies. But over those 4 engine companies in 2020, they ran about 6,820 calls throughout 2020. That's quite busy for those guys. I can tell you this year, I'm sure it'll be much busier, as I'll tell you here in a minute for the January statistics. But in 2020, the average response time was roughly 6.5 minutes across all those 4 stations responding. In January of 2020, just to know the difference that COVID made for us, in January of 2020, we ran about 173 calls. In January of 2021, we ran 585 calls. So our just call load went up because of COVID and everything in general, I would have to say, over 412 more calls in just a month alone. However, the actual average response time for January 2020 was down to about 4 minutes and 45 seconds. So, that they're becoming more efficient in responding. And hopefully I would have to almost credit some of that to Supervisor Goodman in some dramatic increases in roadways and the travelability that's gone on, and the improvements in travelability down there in Santan Valley. That you may see it as it makes your drive or your commute a little less intense, or a little less traffic, but it also increases our ability to get to emergencies quicker and get that life-saving aid or whatever it may be to patients and people who are in need a little bit quicker when they have those roadway improvements and those connections from where we don't have to drive the long ways around, if you will. So some of the things that I hear quite often, obviously, from folks and when I'm out interacting with the community, is that they want to see more resources down there. They would like to see more stations. We 100% agree with you on that one. We would love to have at a minimum 2 more stations within the Santan Valley area. There is one currently in the planning. And if Chief Gilbert wants to elaborate on that, I'll allow him to, but we do have one in the planning process right now. It's really to get that engine company that's housed together into its own separate station. But we really have to look at the reality of that situation, which is, if only 1 in 4 people are subscribing, does that equate to enough funding to then put in 2 more stations? And that's where we have to, we appeal to the general public within, or the community within Santan Valley, saying the resources are really at your disposal. You're the folks who determine what resources are going to be in that area to some degree, because it comes directly from membership subscriptions. So the more folks that are subscribing, the more resources we're able to dedicate down there, because of that increased foothold, as Supervisor Goodman was saying. Let's see, what else do we have? Trying to think of some of the other things that I definitely hear on a regular basis are obviously addressing price. As we said, that price is also directly related to the 1 in 4 folks, or the 40% of folks who subscribe versus the 60% who don't, because there are that 60% who are taking their chances with the fact that if I don't subscribe and I have to use the emergency service, I may receive a bill for the fee for service type of event that happened. If that, whether that's a medical or a structure fire or something else, they run that chance, but they're placing the burden of paying for that response, because as the fire department, we do have a responsibility to provide, in some respects, provide care to 100% of the population, even though 40% of the population is opting to support that. None of our firefighters or dispatchers know who's subscribed and who's not subscribed. So when the 911 call comes in and it goes to the engine company or whoever's responding, they just respond to the emergency, and that's by design, so that they're delivering the best possible services, the most professional services they can, without knowing who's subscribed and who's not subscribed. And anything that happens on the back end of that is somebody in the office determining whether or not that patient or that property was subscribed and whether it should receive a billing. And I can tell you that we don't like having to send out the bills either. We would rather not have to bill people on a fee for service. However, we don't believe that the responsibility should rest 100% on that 40% of people who pay their annual subscription and may never use the service. So hopefully, I hate to say it, but we don't want you to ever have to use the service. We don't want to ever have to see you, because that means you're having a bad day typically. Unfortunately, that's, if we're responding, there's something really bad happening. So we don't want that burden to fall on that 40% of the people, for the rest who opted not to. But so to negate that, we do issue those bills. We do send out the bills, and we try to collect to the best we can for those services rendered outside of our subscriptions. And then in increasing that foothold within your particular community is something that we've spent time speaking with Supervisor Goodman and working with community members, and we're working with individual HOAs on options and ways to do that, ways to bring a higher penetration of subscriptions into your community, and to bring the prices down, hopefully, because obviously on a scale of more contributors, the price can decrease for everybody involved. And some of the ways that we've developed that is, as I was saying earlier, is either developing a fire district, developing a master contract within your HOA where the HOA collects the fee and everybody within there is covered, or developing even smaller fire districts, maybe a fire district just including the HOA. These are all options that we're researching, and that we're talking with individual HOAs to gauge interest and to see if there's buy-in that the HOA itself can become part of a fire district, and then that brings the prices down. It provides 100% coverage for everybody. As Supervisor Goodman said, we're really trying to make it a more comprehensive look down there and function as best possible. With that, I guess I'll offer up to Chief Davis or Chief Gilbert if they have anything else they would like to add.
No, I think we can open up for questions now. Shawn, you covered all of the high points. We just want to thank Supervisor Goodman for organizing this and getting us all together. And actually, I didn't have a chance to say anything when you were on, Chuck. I think the community should know that during the course of COVID, there was a lot of impact on a lot of people and a lot of workload. I personally want everybody to know that with the calls that I had the opportunity to be on, both nationally, statewide, other counties in the state, and here in Pinal County, I'm not just trying to highlight Chuck in the midst of this call. The reality is I relied on the Pinal County calls oftentimes to really get good information. He did a bang up job. It didn't matter whether it was Tuesday or Saturday or what day of the week it was. Chuck, you have Pinal County and all of us in Pinal County have really been able to get through this easier because of your efforts. So we appreciate that. And so on top of that, I don't know if Chief Gilbert, if you have anything to add, but Shawn, you covered the high points, and I think we can open it up to questions.
Yeah, we can go to questions.
Ashley,
I'll ask a question.
I'm not seeing a question come through. Maybe here we go.
Steve had one.
How do you do a
So
question?
are there still plans for a new rural metro station in North Santan Valley? If so, any idea where it's going to be?
I'll take this one. Yeah, yes, we do have plans. We are looking in the northeast corner of Santan Valley. That's kind of where we're at right now. We have 2 or 3 different lots of land that we're looking at to get those secured at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. I think there's another question here. So someone's talking about medical associated with fire protection. Let's see. So if you happen to be in an accident in a county with rural metro, are you covered under medical assistance as well?
So I guess covered under medical assistance. So any services, if you had a membership with Rural Metro, any services rendered by the fire department would be covered by your subscription. Where usually kind of how I put it is where the line is drawn or where our membership stops is at the back door of the ambulance. So once you're loaded into an ambulance and you're transported to an emergency room or just a hospital or whatever else, that usually goes towards health insurance. Any transport is billed to health insurance, and it's state regulated on what they can charge and how it's charged. And then obviously your insurance company, your health insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, would pick up whatever portion per your policy. They split 80-20 or whatever it is. So anything rendered by the fire department, any kind of medications, any assessments, any extrication from a vehicle, any of that stuff would be covered by the fire department or by your Rural Metro membership.
Thank you. And then we've got a couple questions from Jeff Brown. First, how can we best assist to get the word out about the benefits of signing up for subscription to Rural Metro?
So what I always encourage folks to do is just talk to your neighbors. That the best referral or the best way to educate somebody is to just explain to them, hey, this is why, like kind of as I said before, and I'm happy to, I'll put my information in there. You can say, hey, or call this guy if you want. But just explain, hey, we're in an unincorporated area. We don't get taxed, so there is nothing that pays for a fire department. If you lived in Chandler or Gilbert or anywhere else, that tax is in your property. You don't have to worry about it. Out in these areas, it's more like a utility. We have to sign up for a subscription. You have an annual rate and so forth, so on. So just kind of sharing that information with folks is probably one of the best ways to get that out. And then what was the other question? I'm not quite clear on whether it's 40% of those are eligible or if it's 1 in 4. So what I was referencing is that roughly 30 to 40% of the people subscribe. So 30 to 40% of the people actually pay their annual or pay monthly or quarterly or semi-annual or whatever. So the remaining 60% opt not to have the subscription and just kind of either roll the dice or take their chances with a billing or having an emergency. As I say, you don't usually take a chance with your car insurance, and it's kind of similar in that respect. And nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm just going to have a heart attack today or have a medical emergency or drive out of my driveway and get hit by a car or in a car accident. So those are the things you don't think about as much. And then you can roll into I have natural gas amounts, but I have a natural gas leak. That's something we respond to quite often. Or I'm doing some landscaping and I hit a gas pipe and I fracture a gas line in my yard, and now all of a sudden I've got gas spewing. These are types of things we even do. Down to the rattlesnake that sneaks into your garage, and the wife's afraid of rattlesnakes or whatever. All those things would be covered then by your membership. Hey, I got a rattlesnake. I want you guys to come get them out. It's 2 a.m. My smoke alarms are going off and I can't reach the one at the 15-foot vaulted ceiling. These are all types of things that we end up responding to for our members, that it's included in your benefits. And there are some other things rolled into those benefit packages for folks that help along as well. That new subdivision. So yes, the second part of that question, most sales offices should have our information. I make a point to hit all the sales offices fairly routinely and drop off stacks of our membership information. So hopefully they have them somewhere. If they don't, if somebody knows of one, I'll be happy to drop some more out there. Because I'm always driving around and making sure they have them, that their sales agents are aware. Because I think the educational part is probably one of our most challenging parts, is to get people out there and let them know they can make a decision, whether that's through their realtor when they buy the house, their insurance agent when they put a homeowner's policy on the house, or neighbors or somebody telling them about it. That's probably some of our most challenging, is to reach folks, educate them, and let them make the decision. Then we don't get the call 6 months in where somebody says, well, I got a bill, what is this about? And I had no clue. And again, that's something we absolutely hate, because we hope somewhere in that line, somebody has touched them with the information.
Thank you, Shawn. I think that was all the questions we had. So we're right on time here. I don't know, Mike, if there's anything you wanted to say to close out.
You bet. First of all, in regards to getting the message out there, what we can do is help in our department is we'll continue to push the message out, Shawn and Brian, for rural metro, that the issue is related to a subscription, making sure that message is out there. Do you have any information as to what the rates are based on square footage, or is that something that they just fill out a piece of? What's the best way for them to go about it? Going to your website and filling out application?
On our website, you should be able to put in your address, and it'll come up with what your subscription rate is. So you should go through there, or you can call one of our customer service folks, and they'll be happy to look it up and tell you what the subscription rate is. So yeah, those are probably the two easiest ways to find it, unless you have a new homeowners packet somewhere. I know Johnson Ranch at the community center has some. I think there's some at Santan Heights Community Center as well. And then most of the new home developments should have them in there.
Okay.
Or if you want one, stop by our station. You can grab a packet from our station too. Any one of our stations.
Okay. And we do have several new subdivisions that are going to be popping up here pretty quick. So do you make an active effort to meet with some of their sales departments and make sure that they understand that the area that people are moving into is a subscription area?
Yep. So I always, as soon as they put up the sales office, I stop in there. And as I said, I'll deliver, 50 or so of these new membership packets. I'll make sure the sales agents are aware and kind of how they can present it. And they have my information. So if they have a question, they can send that person directly to me if they need more explanation about something. But as they start to build those offices, I'm in there stopping and making sure they have the information, that the sales agents are aware. And I know they turn over sometimes, but I haven't found it to be too regularly. They turn over the agents within those offices, but at least they have them.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you being here. Just a couple of more plugs that I'd like to put in. One of the things that we have right now in this area is, I think, Shawn, you mentioned the construction of roads. We have quite a few roads that are being worked on currently, and additional roads being built. I'd just like to recommend or remind the citizens to be careful, be safe, be patient with us, be patient with one another as you're traveling. It'll make a big difference, but the improvements are happening, and we're excited to see a lot of things going forward. In addition to that, we have some initiatives that are taking place here by various citizen groups that to be able to get messages out to the citizens and even get more involvement from our citizens. We have an organization that just in the process of putting some things together to come before the board called the Santan Valley Advisory Council. Their main goal and function is to communicate with the residents and get input and feedback from them in regards to amenities and things that will better create a better lifestyle for people here. And so just want to put that plug in for people to get involved with their community and help in those regards. Thank you guys for taking the time. Thank you, Sheriff Lamb and Chuck. We appreciate you and all your efforts that you're giving. So with that, I just want to tell everybody we appreciate you. And remember, Supervisor Goodman loves you. See you guys.
We
Bye,
love you too,
everybody.
Mike. Take care, everybody. Be safe.